This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.
Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com. Glad to welcome Mac Engel from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. We'll be talking to him every week. How you doing, Mac?
Great, Brian. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Great to have you. And, it's funny because we're talking today about boxing, and it seems like nobody talks about boxing anymore unless there's some kind of a controversy or corruption or something going on. And we see what happened with the Bradley Pacquiao fight over the weekend. Did you get to watch the fight?
I did, and I was excited about watching it, if only because I wanted to see a fight. I wanted to see the prize fight because there's not many of them. You only have a few of them every year, and I wanted to see this. So, yes, myself and a friend of mine paid $10 cover charge to a bar in Fort Worth and sat down and watched 12 rounds of boxing.
So what did you think of the fight before the scoring?
It's funny you should say that. We were sitting there talking, my friend and I, and we were both kind of commenting that it was just sort of a decent fight, that Bradley had been on, sort of survival mode from about the second round on, at which point we didn't know he had hurt his foot or his ankle. But we just kind of gave him credit for hanging in and dodging Manny's tough punches. But both of us had thought that Manny was clearly the winner and that it really was just an okay fight and that we were glad we didn't pay $55 or $65 to pay for the fight at home.
So then the scorecards come out, and Bradley's declared the winner by a split decision. Then what'd you think?
Couldn't believe it. Was thrilled that I had actually paid $10 to go watch the fight because I knew I had seen something that everybody was going to be talking about it. And at that point, and I'm just being completely honest, Brian, at that point I knew I had seen a total sham joke. But there was a part of me that was like, oh man, I saw it. I got to see what everybody's going to be talking about. And I was, and that's a hell of a thing as a sports fan to sit there and say, you know what, I just threw away $10 to watch reality TV joke. But I got to tell you, when Michael Buffer was reading off the judges' decisions, the scorecards, and he said, and knew everybody in that place, myself included, about fell on the floor. None of us can believe it. But it was, God, Brian, I feel terrible for saying this. There was a part of me that was like, yeah, I saw it. Oh, yeah, Manny got screwed. What a joke.
Well, for sheer entertainment value, I guess it was pretty good. I mean, but you had to feel like you needed to take a shower after the thing was over, right?
Yeah, totally. And that's the problem with boxing. And I talked to Paulie Ayala today about this idea, because you knew it was coming, Brian, that everybody was going to be sitting there saying it's fixed. You've got one promoter in charge of two fighters, and there was even the Manny Pacquiao versus Timothy Bradley rematch poster was already being circulated 2 weeks before this fight even happened. So it just gave all the ammunition to everybody to sit there and say, this thing is fixed. So when I called Paulie Ayala, the former champion boxer who lives in Fort Worth, and he had seen it, and I asked him about it, he said, no, this isn't fixed. He said, there's so many things in contracts that people don't understand. He said, I just think it was incompetent judges. I'm inclined to go with Paulie on that one because Paulie loves boxing. Boxing gave him his life. And for Paulie to say that, I'll go with him. He's the expert. But I got to tell you, as a fan, as a consumer, it's really hard for me to walk away from that fight and not say, you know what, something stinks.
Well, I mean, that's the problem, though. I mean, for every guy like Paulie who knows the fight game, and and I understand that the sport is regulated heavily and all that, but like you said, you saw posters for the rematch 2 weeks before this fight took place. I mean, how could you not feel like this thing was fixed?
I don't think you couldn't, because you've got it's so. There's not very many powerful people left in boxing, and Bob might be the most powerful fight promoter left out there that really controls everybody. So if Bob wants to do something, he's probably got enough clout, enough leverage, and enough money to do something like that. Now let's just assume though that all this stuff is just a media creation. It's conspiracy theories run amok. then these are the dumbest judges who ever lived. And Bryan, I don't know if you remember this. I don't know. I enjoy watching good fights. This wasn't even that great of a fight. It really wasn't. I mean, Manny Pacquiao, it was a really one-sided fight. But the last time I can remember watching a decision blown like this was the 1988 Summer Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Lloyd Jones. You remember that one?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that was but you know, you've come to expect screw jobs in the Olympics. I mean, that just goes with the territory, right?
Yeah, and I think, and I've read quite a bit about this fight in the last day or so. And boxing guys will tell you, if you're in a fight and you leave it in the judge's hands, this could happen. And you talk to anybody who is an athlete who is evaluated and it wins or loses based on the evaluation of somebody else, a judge. And that's the funny part. You and I would sit there and watch boxing and say, man, this is a sport. This is a sport. These are two guys knocking the hell out of each other. This is a sport. But we watch gymnastics, we watch diving, we watch figure skating, and other sports that are involving a judge, and a lot of us say, but it's not a sport. You're right. I mean, and when you come away with watching that crap we watched on Saturday night, then I don't see how anybody can sit there and say it's really that much different than gymnastics when we see somebody get screwed like we will in London here in a couple months.
Well, I mean, first of all, I guess, how do you become a fight judge? I mean, do you automatically have to have, do you have to be blind to begin with, or how does that work?
I think you have to have an open mind and a wallet that is requiring of funds. Because, I mean, and the sad part about it is I was excited about watching that fight. I was really mad when I missed the Mayweather-Cotto fight a couple of months ago because everybody told me it was a pretty good fight. It was an entertaining fight where guys, Cotto really came at Mayweather, and I said the next time there's a big prize fight, I'm going to buy it and make it a night. And so I did on this one. And what's sad is instead of championing, wow, what a great fight I just watched, and two guys really going after it, and there's a lot of good punching and great athleticism and a lot of aggressiveness and, a lot of courage to sit there, and I hate using that word with sports, but instead, this is what I'm left talking about and celebrating, that I got to see the screw job of the year.
All right, so now this has happened. All this thing is getting is bad media now. So what happens? I mean, where do we go from here?
That's a good question. And you read about what's going on with Bob Arum, and you don't know what to believe, whether it's legitimate or not. You've got to know that this guy has, a serious conflict of interest going on where he's promoting a fight. He's promoting fighters that everything looks like he orchestrated this, that he looks like no different than a reality TV producer putting the fat girl against the hot girl. And so you have to sit there and question it. But I think where we go from this is that boxing enjoys a lot of publicity, and boxing has accepted that any press is good press. That Manny Pacquiao is going to fight this guy again in November, and that Floyd Mayweather gets out of jail, and I don't know. I think it's less than 90 days now. I don't know how many days he's been in jail, but whenever Floyd gets out, he'll come out shooting his mouth off because that's what he does, and he does it extremely well. And then he's going to line up some other guy and go beat the hell out of him. And by the time these guys actually do fight, and I'm talking Manny and Mayweather, if they ever do, that it's not going to be what it should have been because they're going to be older and they're both going to be so rich and so comfortable that I don't know if either men will go after them the way we kind of want them to.
And even the scenario you paint there sounds like a fix. It sounds like the whole thing's staged to try to drive ticket buyers to pay for a Mayweather-Pacquiao fight that isn't going to be any good by the time he gets here.
Yeah, and I don't have any problem with producers or promoters trying to drive up interest in their fight. I really don't. If you want to throw in storylines, that's fine. We're all part of it. I'm okay with that. But what I'm not okay with is that you're going to give me an inferior product. And I think that's what we would get because Manny is 33. I'm pretty sure Mayweather's 35. And, for boxers, that's about the end.
Mm-hmm.
And now the problem that you weigh into that is that look how comfortable they probably both are. The only thing that I hope is if these guys do fight, and I don't know if they will. I thought for a while they would. Now I'm back on the side that they won't. But now you put them in a ring. My only hope is that they have enough pride that they want it and that they'll go after it. as opposed to just sitting back and dancing with each other the way kind of Oscar de la Hoya did at the end of his career, where he had so much money and he had managed his wealth so well that to really go after it, there was no benefit to doing it.
Yeah. Now, the last question I'm going to ask is now, are you going to spend your $10 on that Pacquiao-Bradley rematch?
You know, it's funny you should say that. I thought about that after and like yesterday, I thought, would I go back and I watch it? Because initially, the fun had been being out with a buddy and drinking some beer and eating some, bad food. Yeah, I got to tell you, I might do it again because and that's the other thing. I don't know it amazes me. I wrote about it when I got home. I wrote about it. I put it on my blog, and it was a huge traffic driver. And I thought, everybody says boxing is dying. Everybody's saying nobody watches, but there are numbers out there to suggest that people like me are still suckers for this garbage. Yeah, Bryan, I hate to tell you, I will probably go watch that trash one more time.
Just don't spend the full-blown pay-per-view price. That's
right,
all I ask.
I won't spend $55 at home or $65 on the high def, but I'll go blow $10 at a bar.
Something tells me the mama would not like that very much at all,
It's not. I don't know if it's a wise investment.
If you're even having to question yourself about that, dude, you need to go ahead and just put it in some kind of a CD, okay?
Yeah, it's kind of like eating a box of Twinkies. It tastes really good while you're doing it, and then immediately you feel like garbage and you can take a bath.
Exactly. Okay, so you got a column on this tomorrow?
Yes, I do. I am writing about this, and the whole idea, I liken this in professional sports, certainly what we saw with the Belmont, and the whole idea that the NBA is rigged and all this stuff is rigged. I think professional sports now, I kind of like it to the quiz show scandals of the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Pro sports sort of lives with that cloud, and then that era, that idea of suspicion is that really what we're watching here is quiz show.
Everything we're watching now is professional wrestling. Do you know some people actually think that stuff's fake?
I have no idea. Just a few of them.
All right, so it's on the Forward Star Telegram website tomorrow, and we'll be watching for it, Mac. It's good talking to you, buddy.
All right, Bryan, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
No problem. We'll talk to you next week. Mac Engel from the Forward Star Telegram on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.
This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.